Broadcasting live from the command tower on the plane of... It's been on so many at this point. This is Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham. Welcome to Tap Tap Concede. Joining me this week we have Ben. And Wheeler. And today... Does that feel good?
Yeah.
Good. Today we're talking about Commander Brackets Beta. But before we get into that, I want to remind everybody, of course, that this show is brought to you by our friends at Card Kingdom. Please check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. Buy your cards there. Their customer service remains excellent. And if you tell them, loading ready run sent me button, please, they'll give you a little 1-inch button. And it'll say a funny thing. I don't know what it says right now, but we got to make some more.
I think it says...
And if not,
I don't know how that,
library.
I don't know how that would translate, but we can try.
It's just a button coated in peanut butter.
This is a health risk to the people ordering and the people at Card Kingdom. And of course, this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We really appreciate you letting us do all of this. And want to shout out also to Dragon Shield. Use the code LRRMTG5 to get yourself 5% off at Dragon Shield. So, we've got Ben and Wheeler here to talk about the Commander Brackets Beta, which is still...
That's a very key thing.
Merely in beta.
Yeah, that needs to be stressed, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to say things that may sound wild to come from somebody on the Commander format panel. But they are all in an effort to push that this is very much a work in progress. And also, even though it serves to give guidance to players, it is also wildly nebulous and
just like
will not matter to any, to a large portion of the audience.
Right.
Yeah.
So you are on the Commander format panel.
Technically, yes.
Along with how many other folks?
19 maybe? There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, there are a ton of people from all over the globe with all different experiences towards Magic the Gathering and Commander especially.
And it's made up of folks who... there's some people who were on the rules committee, some people who were on the Commander advisory group, some people from Wizards, and some people who are totally outside of all three of those things. Yeah?
Yes. Less people from Wizards, as there is a team that is with Wizards that will, work on the feedback that we provide or, that occasionally chimes in and asks us questions. But it is mostly, I think almost exclusively just non-Wizards people. Gavin's there.
No, yeah,
he kind of runs the show.
And Gavin, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, the brackets are intended as a way to give people the language to compare deck power, so that if you're sitting down at a table, not power, if you're intention. So if you're sitting down at a table with someone to play Commander, you have an idea of what kind of thing to expect out of a given deck, so that you're not necessarily facing a
like-minded goals.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
The big thing for me that I instantly saw for it is it's giving you something a little bit more tangible to work off of.
Yeah, there's no lasagna.
Yeah.
It's not like out of 10 where everybody's like, I'm a 7, ha ha ha.
Yeah. It's a smaller range, which I appreciate, and B, has some very distinctive quote unquote rules within each of those brackets that allows you to, from a very top down sort of level, quantify the cards in your deck out to a power level, essentially, in a very hand wavy sense, at least for now, it seems.
Yeah, because we'll get into it once we get in the individual brackets, but your deck could be in a bracket that doesn't necessarily reflect the actual power level, and sometimes players are looking to match power level rather than to match experience, because every player is different and wants different things out of Commander, and Commander is the format where you can do literally anything. So it's really hard to nail down specifics towards anything.
And so before, when people, not everyone either, when there was a push to use this sort of 1 through 10 system, it was sort of like, well, I can imagine what the worst commander deck is, and I can imagine what the best commander deck is. So on that, I'm probably like a 6 or whatever. And now here we have, 1 through 5. So it's like, yeah, I can imagine what a 1 might be, and I can imagine what a 5 might be. So yeah, like my deck's, I don't know, like probably like 2 or something. But that's not what this is.
No, yeah. And like the old scale it served some purpose, definitely. It wasn't one that was really pushed by like a governing body or any sort like that, but it was one that left the evaluation in the hands of Magic players who are notoriously terrible at evaluation and are notoriously terrible at Magic the Gathering as a whole. It's a hard game. It's a really hard game. And
I've been losing a lot of Ether Drift sealed.
And just like, yeah, asking people that don't necessarily have the best evaluation of the game as a whole, but then to evaluate what they are doing and compare it to what other people are doing, naturally they are going to assume that, well, I'm being more honest than other people because it's me, and other people are not going to be so honest, or they are going to, be more powerful than what I would do, because that's just how humans work.
Well, I think the interesting thing, like from the article itself that was posted, was like the very first sort of paragraph was basically saying like, if you were playing, kitchen table Magic with your friends and you have like a play group that you play with, this is probably not going to affect you at all, because you've probably, for the most part, figured out a dynamic amongst your group that you play with that already works and is fine, right? One of the sort of main goals of this is so that you can play with other people that you might not know, or like you're at like a convention, I imagine, or like an LGS or something, and you can be like, hey, we want to play some Commander. All right, what kind of deck are we playing here? And just sort of be able to have a little bit of a shorthand instead of like, well, because but prior to this, there was obviously the power level thing, but then people started like toting like, well, my deck does this, and I expect it to go off on this, and blah blah blah, and it's like, well, not everybody wants to hear that from like 5 or 6 different times while you try to identify which decks you're going to play against one another. So this almost feels like a really, the goal is to make like an easier shorthand for this. Like this is this is a 3.
It is a sign to point at.
Yeah,
which is very helpful for tournament organizers, or just people that don't want, it's a weird thing to say with a social format, but people that don't want a heaping spoonful of human interaction with like arguing whether or not what they're saying is going to be accurate, or if it lines up with what they have, or like trying to be like, hey, that deck really hoses graveyards and I'm a graveyard deck, can you not do that? Like, you're still going to run into instances of that, but like being able to be like, sign says 2, bud. Sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, as enjoyers of alternative formats and stuff, I love the idea of these brackets enabling tournament organizers, if you're making a Commander tournament or whatever, to be like, we're having a 2 tournament, so your deck has to follow these 2.
Yeah,
right, or we're having a 3 tournament or something like that.
Like it's a shorthand to skip socialization or awkward conversations. Like, that's a feature of it. That's not it exclusively, but that is something that it can do pretty well. But it also can be used to create more conversations in environments where people want to have that little extra flair, to make an evening out of it, to really like just make the game a more social and enjoyable experience of like, yeah, maybe a store has like bracket one night and encourages everybody to bring their deck lists with like, side note, the third parties were like contacted about like updating their stuff to have the brackets. So like, as soon as it went live, Moxfield told all of your decks what brackets they were in.
Literally what happened to me. I was for reference, we're recording this on Friday. Tonight is Friday Night Paper Fight, and I was finishing the touches on the Commander decks for tonight, and I refreshed the page just after, because I wasn't watching the live, and then it just said bracket 2 above my list, and I'm like, what the hell? What is this? What does this mean? And Yeah, that took to social media to discover it.
To your other point as well, I think I've said this before, but like the way that, I mean, I don't build that many decks, but I mean, I know that you're always brewing up new stuff. You never, for any deck I've ever built, could I tell you what turn I'm expected to do anything, because I just don't play them that often, right? It's like, oh, what turn do you do? I don't know. I hope one of them.
Real talk, I don't play enough of the decks to be able to identify that stuff at all. And like a lot of the times, if I whoopsie into like a 2-card combo, it's because each of those cards individually were synergistic with the thing I was building, and then they're both on the field, and you go, oh, okay. So
the turn system also assumes that your deck is relatively min-maxed.
Sure.
Like that you have a repeatable pattern.
That ain't me.
Yeah, that's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
Shoot, that's not even CDH players. Have you seen some of the garbage they're playing? That's a whole nother story. But it's the timing thing is just like, well, my deck is built in a way that 70% of my hands I have a rock on 2, and then it goes to 60% chance of me having a rock on 4, and then I can do this. It's like, okay, but what does that mean?
So what does that mean? What are these numbers we're throwing
let's
around?
talk about it, because I will say I'm surprised by some of these things in the dealio. Because,
So they did say, like, it's more like, there's a graphic that we're going to show you on screen in a moment while I sort of read through it. But if you aren't already seeing it, but they did say, like, bear in mind the text of the article as well. Like, there's more to it than sort of just these bullet points. And so I'm going to read through the stuff on this graphic on this graphic, and then I'm going to ask Wheeler to hopefully sort of expound a little bit further. So, 1, Exhibition, your ultra casual commander deck. No mass land denial or extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, more on what a game changer is shortly, few tutors. 2, the average current pre-constructed deck. No mass land denial, no chaining extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, few tutors. 3, upgraded, beyond the strength of an average precon. No mass land denial, no chaining extra turns. Late game 2-card infinite combos are okay, and 3 game changers. 4, optimized, high-powered commander, it's time to go wild, no restrictions other than the banned list. And then 5, CEDH, high power with a very competitive and metagame-focused mindset, no restrictions other than the banned list. So, no wonder all your decks were like, oh, I guess this is a 2, right? Because it's like, well, you're not chaining extra turns together, and you're not CDH, so I guess that's aren't most decks sort of comfortably nestled into bracket 2?
2s and 3s, yeah, for sure. I think that seemed to be the case for most. For a lot of the jank brewers, the people who get, I think, excited about weirdo stuff. I think most of my Mox field goes between 1 and 3.
I was gonna say, most of my stuff has to be 1s.
Yeah,
like,
the people who are like, oh, new soldier lord who poops out soldiers and gives all soldiers 5/5. And
Shivam.
Yeah. Their decks are like way up there probably, and have been like, I mean, I would imagine if you've got a pet deck that you've been optimizing for the past decade, it's probably in the 4 and 5, which I remember, I think BDM tweeted that most of his decks are 4s on Moxfield.
I've played against BDM. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the brackets.
Yeah.
The brackets.
Talk to us about brackets.
So the first bracket number 1, like a spectacle, right? You are there to do a trick and share that with people.
Yeah.
You have a very specific set of things you want to showcase. It's more about, what ingredients you are using than the inevitable, like, pile of crap that may come at the end. It's kind of like, I don't know, one of those cooking shows where they throw in a bunch of wacky stuff, and it's like, I'm showing you that I'm using this kind of food coloring or this kind of fondant or this, and it's like pretty cool that you are getting to use all those ingredients. And then when you put them all together, you're like, ta-da, and it looks absolute dreck. Like it looks terrible. But when you taste it, you're like, well, this is technically sugar and vanilla. It's
I
not
thought you were
that
going to go the other
bad.
direction with that metaphor where it's like, well, you've made an amazing sculpture out of food. This doesn't taste good.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be like that, but I think like I enjoy building a lot of one decks because I like showcasing weird aspects of this game, right? Little corners of the history of this game. And to me, it's not about the end goal. It's about getting to show off stuff that ends up connecting with each other and being like, isn't it cool that a game piece from 1997, locks into this game piece from like 2017?
I love that so much.
I think there are a few times I see your face light up as much as when you resolve a spell that has an old border and someone goes, "Huh?
Yeah.
What is that?
What is that? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
There is like personally a lot of my one decks do fall into the category of two because I like tutors. I like finding my crap. And which is where a lot of these brackets kind of muddy is about, railing in specific type of cards.
Even
one
only says few tutors.
Yeah.
So that was my surprise. Is I tend to not. I'm like, oh, as soon as if I buried alive and throw 3 spooky things into the bin, I worry that my deck is too powerful.
Right.
I mean, certain tutors get certain tutors are more impactful than other ones, right? Like some of the tutors that we'll talk about once we get to the game changer list are usually the ones that are more open-ended or less mana intensive. So like Buried Alive is not a game changer and is probably safe. I mean, it kind of depends on what other cards you're looking to play around that Buried Alive, right? Yeah. Where it's like, oh, you're getting a Valgavoth Archon of Cruelty and like Anger or something. Like, okay, that's going to kill all of us. But as an individual card, it's not going to necessarily push your deck up to the next bracket. Something like that won't.
I like what you're saying though about like using tutors to make jank happen. I think is like this interesting sort of aspect.
That's just the way every time like discourse surrounding demonic tutor pops up on social media in Commander, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I always play demonic tutor because it finds my land or it just finds whatever clunky garbage I want to play.
Ebony Owl Netsuke.
And sometimes my demonic tutor finds a Swords to Plowshares to like kill your thing, but I'm not doing it to be like, I've used 3 mana to eliminate a 5 mana threat, therefore I'm up, right? Like I'm doing it because it's like, well, we want to keep playing this game, so I'm going to go down this path.
Yeah.
You're not using the tutor to find the, for example, because they mention it here a lot, the second half of your 2-card infinite combo.
No. Yeah, that's unexciting to me personally if I'm looking to build that style of deck.
So we'll look at the game changer list later, but just to tell you what it is, it's a list of like specific cards that could be called out as not necessarily problems, but like the kind of card where you're like,
you groan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so bracket 1 and 2 is like no game changers, that's why I want to live in bracket number 2. But 3 is almost sort of operating on like a Canlander points list because it's like you can have 3 game changers, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, having a little treat is fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, again, having a demonic tutor in your deck is not the end of the world, especially if you are just finding, like, whatever card you want to get onto the field to share that experience with people or to, push your own experience, your own game plan or whatever, right? It's when you start loading them all up and you have these different tutor chains of like my expedition map finds my inventor's fair, which finds this combo piece, and this combo piece also finds this other combo piece or whatever. Like that's when you get to be a little awkward. That's when you start to push maybe a little bit past 3, but even then, like you could have a bunch of really crappy combos to set up some kind of like I get to tutor every single turn. And then I'm I've now assembled blasting station, grinding station, summoning station, salvaging, like this
Yeah.
long line of clunky artifacts from 20 years ago or whatever. One thing I do want to very quickly mention about the jump from 1 to 2
Yeah.
is that when you get to 2, it in my mind and the mind of some of the other folks on the Commander format panel is that like if 1 is sharing like a thing, like I want to show off this kind of thing for the deck, like it's a the tada, then 2 is more about like setting a theme or a strategy or an idea, and then just like the machinations of going through that strategy. So like I'm playing Caradora. I have a green-white counters deck with like +1/+1 counters, and all my cards are cards that care about +1/+1 counters. And so that is likely going to fall into a 2 because there's not really an aha moment and look at this. You just are a deck with a game plan that you want to take part in. You want to like, it's for me, it would be fun to play things with counters and put more counters on them and make them bigger. And I don't have tutors because it doesn't matter. My deck just all does that thing. And I'm just looking to ride out that experience no matter which specific card I have.
Yeah, I imagine like baby's first elf ball deck would probably fall into
Right.
that,
You just
like,
you put a bunch of elves together and you're an elf deck doing elf things, and that's fun. And it doesn't matter which configuration of your elves you have. It just matters that you are doing elves, right?
I think the article was saying like a good way to look at 1 is like you have like some funny thing, right? Like you're like, this is my horsies deck, or like this is my deck that has people wearing hats, or this is my deck that has the number 4 in all the things, right?
This
like
all
that's
sounds great.
That's a good way to look at 1 kind of thing, or like the tada moments. I think is a good way to look at it in that way. And so and then 2 becomes this like, okay, I have a theme and an idea, and this is like something that's probably supported within the realm of like the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, but I don't have any infinite combos. I can take an extra turn maybe as a treat, but I can't chain them together. I don't have any of the things on the game changer list. Mass land denial is a thing that they mention in both 1 and 2 as things that you can't do.
So there's like
what's land denial as opposed to land destruction?
Back to basics. Blood Moon.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Right.
those kinds of things.
Okay.
It's where red shines.
And then 4 and 5 have the same like restrictions, which is to say none restrictions in terms of cards that you can run, except for the commander ban list. So what's sort of the distinction between 4, which is optimized high power commander, and 5, which is CEDH high power commander, but with a metagame mindset?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out an analogy that is less violent than the one in my head, and I can't. 4 is killing somebody with a hammer, and 5 is using a gun.
Okay.
Like, both will get the job done.
Right.
But one of them is
One
like...
of them is designed to do a thing.
Thank you. That's it. Yes.
Okay.
And like you can get a really big hammer and it'll probably still get that job done or whatever. But it was not necessarily designed for this goal, nor is it optimized and uses that optimization as a selling point. And you're also not in a duel. Like you could be in like a standoff where everybody has guns or whatever. And you all agreed to bring your guns to this, Mexican showdown or Mexican standoff.
But Jim brought a hammer, and that wouldn't feel fair. Which is why you've made the distinction between 4 and 5.
And it didn't have to be a hammer. One guy could have a hammer. One person has a baseball bat. Like, you're all there relatively for the same reason.
Jim, we said 5s.
Yeah. The way I like to think about it is like, how good is Craterhoof? How good is Natural Order into Craterhoof Behemoth? Because like in CDH, probably not that good. We can figure out different ways. Maybe that does happen in some CDH decks, but that's neither here nor there. But like in like a high powered deck where you're like, oh, you just tooth and nailed for like, I don't know, Blightsteel Colossus and like Xenagod or whatever. And that's a bad example. But I don't know.
Blightsteel and something that gives Blightsteel haste.
Sure, like you did this thing that like the rest of the table is like, oh, I guess we're dead, right? Or like, oh, that's not cool. and then it's I call it Big Gulp Commander. It's very sweaty. It's very big gulpy. It's very like I've been refining this deck over, months and years because I need to kick Kevin's ass at my LGS or whatever. Yeah. And they get so lost in the sauce, and then everybody else does it because now they're the bad guy. It's like an arms race.
Yeah, it's like bringing a food deck to a Kindlander.
Yeah, exactly. That's... Yes.
I don't know why I shot Surge suddenly.
Well, because this is a Magic content, like recording. We gotta get in our dig.
Yeah. But no, like from reading it and looking at it, it's like, I can make a deck that's running like Opposition Agent, Orcish Bowmaster, Shield Dread, like all these like disgusting Igrony cards. But that on its own isn't just going to like net me into this like insta win, right?
You're not,
and that's not even like doing the things that like a CDH deck might do.
Yeah,
right?
if you're doing them off of Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox, and like you have Rogsai in your command zone, then like maybe you are the bad guy there. But like, it's one of the ways to look at bracket 4 and not to slam on players that do play bracket 4 is they are the reason this kind of system exists.
Sure.
Because it's very much like pub stompy. Like, if you are not prepared to play against this deck, this is the kind of deck that people will definitely undervalue for themselves and just like demolish people because they're like, oh, why didn't you do anything? It's like, well, because I played a 3-mana rock in a casual game of Commander. And they're like, oh, but I already played my Decree of Silence Solemnity. Yeah. Like, you needed to kill this before I got this. It's like, well,
cool, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I should have, but it's that kind of pub stomping kind of player that gets stereotyped, and you'll see at MagicCons or you would see at your LGS or whatever until somebody goes like, "Hey, dude, you gotta chill. Like, this is not where you are. Nobody's getting anything from this unless they just get off on winning."
Yeah, I mean, I'd hazard that like people who are playing decks in the 4 realm would not necessarily be bummed out to fight a deck in the 5 realm, like, or like they. It's tough to say, right? Because it's like if they're like, well, my deck isn't quite CDH level, and then and they're playing it and they kind of fight against a deck that might be CDH level. Like, I would imagine that's kind of what they were expecting in the way that we're describing, right? Like, they're like, that person is running like, force of will to stop these, like, or like, mental misstep or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
the 4 could accidentally stumble into the 5. I doubt the 5 is ever going to look for the 4.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of tracks with some of them. Like, some 3s can tangle with 4s. Some 4s don't mind to tangle with 3s. Honestly, personally, I have always rolled my eyes over like anybody being like, so what are we feeling? Like, what kind of power level? It's like, I don't know. I got something I want to do. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be the threat, but I'm going to do this. Right? Like, I want to play my 2 or I want to play my 1 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so like the 1 to 3 can kind of just jive.
I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the most quantifiable thing I can take out of this is like you've quote unquote protected one like the 1 through 3 sort of area from the people and then like and neither is a bad way to play. It's just like they don't jive well together and so like having a distinctive tangible rule set and like like of what goes into a deck, I think makes it a lot easier for you to have that distinction where it's like, I am a 3 because I follow these 3 rules. And then they're just like, well, my deck has more than the things in the 3. Well, and it's like, well, then it's not a 3. And I prefer not to fight that one.
Yeah. For the 3 with the tutors and the game changers too, I find that 3 is at this level where I would look at my 3s and say, if people want us to be on all 2s, I can change this to be a 2, and it doesn't really impact what I am doing.
That's what I've seen a number of people posting about. They're like, I have this deck that is technically a 3.
Yeah.
And then I take out these 3 cards and swap them with something else. Now it's a 2.
Right.
And it's still a super powerful deck.
Yeah, and it's fun,
That
right?
sounds
You
great.
still get to do your game plan,
That sounds-
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go through the game changers. I'm not going to exhaustively read like every single one, but I'll sort of summarize for those who maybe aren't as familiar. But I'm sure a lot of these you will recognize as sort of like, oh, that card. Scryfall helpfully put together a page that is you can see all the game changers in one thing. And a reminder: these cards these are not banned in Commander. These have
And notably, they did say, "Do not worry. These are not like on their way to the chopping block."
These are not. This is not a ban list. This is not a to be.
It's not even
list.
a watch list.
No,
Like,
it's not. It absolutely is.
You are not like it's a do not go selling your Gaia's cradles or anything like that. Like, do not worry.
These are just these are cards that have been identified as game changers, cards that in some way change the game in a way that some people don't love. I mean, I don't love a lot of these. And when you're in the current beta reminder of the bracketing system, 4s and 5s, open season. 3s, you get 3 of these.
Which
1s and 2s, nah.
so good, right? Like it's. I think I like the idea of because playing with powerful Magic cards is fun.
Yeah, it's fun, especially when there's some novelty to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, I drew my demonic tutor.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
So in white, we have Draneth Magistrate, which is opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands, like the Command Zone, for example.
Understandable.
Enlightened Tutor, which goes searching for an artifact or enchantment. So, a specific tutor. Sarah's Sanctum.
Most of these lands are going to be in.
Oh, right. That's the land. Sorry. That's it's not the white zone. I forgot. It's listed under
They
white.
put it
here,
in
but
white, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a land. There it is. Sarah's Sanctum. Add white to your mana pool for each enchantment you control. Smothering Tithe.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they can pay 2, and if not, you get a treasure token.
Remember when they tried to fix this card? They made like a 2-3 mana version or whatever.
Oh, the temporary truce or monologue tax.
Or something like
one
that.
of them.
It was not good.
Yeah. And Trouble in Pairs, which is if an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. And whenever an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draws their second card or casts their second spell each turn, also you draw a card.
I like this one being on there because it just has so many or this, or when this game state thing happens, or when this,
This is just hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a recurring trend of some of these cards not only providing a bunch of just kind of ambient card advantage, but they're also they just suck to play with.
That
Yeah.
second
Like,
ability
it's just-
also isn't a maze, so it's like,
Yeah.
oh shoot, I should have drawn a card.
Yeah, exactly. More and more, I'm starting to take out cards in my decks that require me to be paying 100% attention to each person's turn.
Yeah. In blue, would it shock you to learn that there's a lot of cards in blue?
The most.
Cyclonic Rift.
That's going to make a lot of people happy.
It makes me happy.
Yeah.
Overload Cyclonic Rift and you return everything that's not yours. Expropriate, which is a Council's Dilemma card, but basically you get to take extra turns, presumably, or you just
At least
gain
one.
control of stuff. You get at least one
At
extra
least
turn.
get
Yeah.
one.
Force of Will. We know Force of Will. It's a free counterspell.
This one I don't like.
I'm with you.
I'm a Force of Will gamer. I am a Fierce Guardianship gamer. But those are usually the only counterspells I play, and it's mostly to like I put them in my blue decks because I know that there's going to be somebody with a Crater Hoof Behemoth or someone that's going to try to like really end the game too quickly or do something, and it's like, well, this is technically card disadvantage. Right. Obviously, hugely tempo positive, mana positive as well.
Right.
But like being card negative and being like a thing that you just do in a game with 3 other players. I love this card. I love Force of Will for Commander. But I get why, because casuals hate Force of Will.
Well, I think
Non-derogatory.
Yeah, I think there's a with bracket 3 in mind, because this is kind of where it's, I think, most effective, is like I believe there's like a number of counterspells on this, and being able to limit the kind of ones or the types of counterspells, because it's like for every person that's like you that just wants to to cast Force of Will to stop some bahonkus from going off on 5. There's somebody who is like, oh yeah, and when I'm building my blue deck, I throw Force of Will, Mana Drain, Force of Negation, but and they're like, why wouldn't I? I need counter spells in my deck, and they're like, oh, are you running Negate? And they're like, why would I run Negate when I've got 7 free counter spells? I got Daze, I got you're just like,
yeah, Mana Drain's a crime. But
yeah.
Fierce Guardianship is also on this list, which is the other sort of. It's if you control a commander, then it's free. The other counterspell, Force of Negation and Pact of Negation are not on this list.
Yes, and that's fine.
So there's some free counterspells.
Yes. Yes.
Rhystic Steady, to the shock of no one. When an opponent casts a spell, do you pay the 1?
Just ban this card already. Just ban this in Smothering Tithe already, please.
Thassa's Oracle. So no more Thoracle nonsense. Urza, Lord High Artificer.
That makes sense.
I'm not sad
This
to
is
see
so
that.
funny to me because I know so many people, or have heard of a lot of people who are running an Urza deck and stuff, and by virtue of that, you are now
You're
in 3, no matter
That's
what.
That's
right?
okay.
Good.
Yeah. That's understandable.
Yeah, and I think that's really funny to me. It's just like when
Tolarian Academy's not banned, it's just in your command zone.
yeah.
Mystical Tutor, of course, another search your library for instants or sorcery. And Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur. This is the expensive Jin-Gitaxias that you draw 7 cards each end step, and also each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7.
This was the most memed one I think I saw on social media.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of like started from the bottom, now I'm here kind of things, because it's just like
Now I'm on not a watch list. Now I'm a game changer. In black, Bolus's Citadel. So look at the top card of your library. You can play stuff from it, but you pay life. Also, you can sack 10 non-land permanents and each opponent loses 10 life, so reasonable. Demonic Tutor. We've talked about tutors a little bit already.
Yep.
And also Imperial Seal.
Very funny. Oh wait, yeah, this card got a printing. Okay, never mind. This card was only had a one printing, and it was like $1,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, there's another card on this list that is very expensive. But it's kind of
Imperial
funny.
Seal was P3K.
P3K.
Right?
Yep.
Opposition Agent.
Thank you.
Just ban this card.
Thank you.
I hate this.
This came up a lot in the Highlander top 8.
Yeah, this card it sucks, dude. It's just Hull Breacher.
Exactly. That was what I was going to say. I'm like, I'm surprised Hull Breacher got shot and Opposition Agent.
Oh,
didn't go with
look, the stupid idiot cast Rampant Growth. Well, sucks
Better
to
get
suck. Woo!
Yeah, for those unfamiliar with Opposition Agent, lucky you. Yeah, it's a 3/2 with flash. You control opponents while they're searching their libraries. So if someone's like, yeah, I cast Rampant Growth, then it's like, then you go, okay, I'll be searching your library. And also, when you can find for them, but then it gets exiled and you get that card.
Oh, you cracked an Evolving Wilds? Well, you deserve to die, pal. Don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just, I hate this card so much. Yeah. Miserable Magic card.
Turgrid, God of Fright.
Good.
So this is the Turgrid that it's a 4/5 menace for 5 that whenever an opponent sacrifices something or discards something, you get it. But perhaps more glaringly, I don't know, the other side of Turgrid is the...
It's this side.
It's this side? Oh,
Yeah.
I like the Lantern.
The lantern's cool. I'd play the Lantern in the command zone.
With the Lantern taps to do the thing. Is there a word for this yet? That they have the choice of sack something, discard something, or lose 3 life? It shows up a lot now.
It's like
on
a
several-
Punisher mechanic.
Villainous choice.
Yeah. Yeah, so the front side of Turgrid is the bigger problem.
Yeah, you cast Dark Deal, and now
You get
you
their
have
entire-
you got everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vampiric Tutor, one more tutor. And Ad Nauseum.
That made a lot of people sad, I imagine, but I don't think it surprised anyone.
Well, it's a little weird because on one hand, this card is like known as like a CDH card, right? But it doesn't, at least in my experience and in like talking about the creation of this list or watching people talk about the creation of the list, is that like this card is mostly sequestered to CDH. Like it very rarely shows up in high level, like high power non-CDH commander. And in fact, I see it more in like meme decks of them. Like, what if I played Demon Lord, Bells and Lock, and Ad Nauseam sort of effect, and just a bunch of lands, or did something kind of goofy. But like, I mean, I guess I get it. It just feels a little like if the game changers are here to stop feel bads, this is a weird one to me. But it also, who cares? It's Ad Nauseam. Like,
which, for those unfamiliar, is you reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand, and you lose life equal to its mana value, and then you can just keep doing that. However many
people
times you want.
will pair this with some sort of like unlife effect or whatever, and be able to do it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But if somebody did this and then like soul converted me, I'd just laugh and have fun.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
It.
It's like when you're flipping over Mox Diamonds, Chrome Moxes, and Dark Rituals, like, yeah, this card's messed up. But if it's like, no, I'm just going to activate my Mirror Universe.
And see what happens.
It's like, yeah, that's dope. Go off.
In red, only 2 cards.
Only 2, baby.
You were saying it's the most fair. It's the most fair color.
I was saying, yeah, change my mind, and everyone was coming at me, and they're like, "Well, it's the land destruction one," and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I know, don't worry.
Jeska's Will,
Yeah.
which of course is you either add a red for each card in target opponent's hand, or you exile the top 3 cards of your library and you can play them this turn. But you get to do both if you have a commander, so that's neat. And Underworld Breach, which is everything in your graveyard has escape.
The 2 cards that are often played in conjunction with one another.
This card is just so funny that it exists.
It is. It's such a defining card.
It's a perfect encapsulation of everything wrong with Theros Beyond Death.
You can see the thought process that like they made up escape. They had this mechanic, and it's like, yeah, escape's really cool.
We want to have some sort of like past in flames.
Yeah, you know what we should do? We should do a thing where like everything in your graveyard has escape for a turn. Yeah, what a great idea. Okay, print it. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, and so we make them exile the card after they escape it, right?
Yeah, right?
Right? Oh,
Wait,
no, we just made better Yogg Will.
Oh, no.
Did we go to print
dang
already?
it.
Darn it. All right.
Different Yogg Will, but mostly better.
It was really cool, though. I will say, like, I was not Underworld Breach. I was not familiar with your game until like I got to actually like really play it against it in Canlander and stuff, and just sort of like it was always this one that I'm like, oh, this seems like way too big brain for me. Until you realize that I'm just like, oh, Brain Freeze just makes this. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, not to slam Surge or anything. No, but this is like Baby's first combo, like Baby's first Storm combo.
Yeah,
and like it's still not the easiest thing in the world getting to that point. But once you have the A plus B, like it's you just Brain Freeze yourself and then cast a Lotus Petal or an LED or a Black Lotus and go off.
Yeah,
I mean you don't have Black Lotus in Commander, but I digress.
Green.
you have jeweled.
Good. Glad that card's gone.
We've got Survival of the Fittest in green. Discard a creature, search your library for a creature.
For some reason, I thought this card was banned. I mean, it's not. I'm thinking obviously of like
it's
Natural
banned
Order.
it's banned in Legacy.
Yeah.
Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. This is the
So weird.
This is the 8-mana Vorinclex that it makes your lands produce more mana, but your opponent's lands just don't untap.
Yeah.
I mean, this card does suck.
It does.
It's really not
I feel like I haven't. I mean, maybe that's just not the Magic that I'm playing, but like I don't see him around that often.
Yeah, it's the kind of card where somebody's like, I haven't updated my Commander deck since 2016.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, you're in for a treat. And then they play this, you're like,
Oh.
yeah.
But like, is he still good?
Is this good?
relevant?
He's a 7/6.
And then in green, at least by color identity, of course, is the land Gaia's Cradle. So tap for 1 mana of each color. Or tap to add green for 1 each creature you control. Wow, what did I say?
Tap
Something
1 green
wrong.
for each. Tap to add 5 green.
Tap to add colors
Just add 5 green.
of green.
Honestly?
All the colors of green.
Sometimes that's worse than what this card does.
There's 4 multicolor cards, and they're all, or at least multicolor identity, and they're all commanders, basically. So we've got Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy.
CDH All-Star for a while.
Yeah, whenever you
Still is.
is. This card, yeah.
whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, you add more mana, and then 7 mana. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a non-human creature from among them into the battlefield.
Oh,
So,
Ikoria.
Yeah. Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow. A little more recent, I think.
This was, I mean, I get it. This was like, I'm bummed out for new Magic players who are like, oh, I want to make a ninja deck. And they're like, I've heard Yuriko's the ninja person. And now you're just kind of like instantly in that weirdo zone.
I think this is to just get players to play with different cards.
Yeah,
Just to be
you know,
like,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, you want to play a ninja deck? Don't worry about Yuriko. Here's this weird turtle from Jumpstart.
The Jumpstart,
Or here, I don't know, play this, like, there's probably a Kaido that you can use as your commander or some crap. Like,
Yeah.
You've got options. You don't need this thing. Play Satoru from
Sure.
Izawa
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
instead.
Yeah, Yuriko has Commander Ninjutsu, which is she can ninjutsu from the command zone,
For 2 mana.
which is it's so cheap. And then
Dog.
then when a ninja deals combat damage, you get to reveal the top card of your library, and you put it in your hand, and also each opponent loses life equal to its mana value.
You get to bob someone.
You get to bob wrong. Winota, good.
Yeah.
Winota joiner of forces. This is whenever Winota attacks, you just get to put a bunch of humans on the battlefield.
Yeah, this card's messed up.
And Grand Arbiter Augustine
So
the
funny.
Fourth.
This is so messed up. My Grand Arbiter deck is not that bad. I have a Grand Arbiter Voltron deck where it's like I just load him up with enchantments because he makes all my big clunky auras cheaper.
Yeah.
So it's like Octopus Umbra on my Grand Arbiter.
If you took off that last line of text, you'd be safe.
Yeah, but the last line of text helps my Grand Arbiter not get killed.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's I don't have any other protection.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, you can be a 3 and just have this. You
No,
can
I'm bringing this to the tables with one. I'm going to be a bad actor here.
and finally, in colorless, some stuff that I mean, I don't think any of this is particularly surprising, but we've got
Sorry.
One of them is
I really wanted them to
Okay.
just be like Mind Stone.
Ancient Tomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. This card is unbelievable.
Taps for 2 taps for 2 and pings you for 2.
Do the thing.
Chrome
Wheeler.
Mox
Do the thing.
Sad. I just got one of these.
or Chrome Mox.
Sorry, things are
He
broken.
pulled up a chroma.
I
and
can't
then
hear
went
us.
hubba
There we
hubba
go.
at the-
We can't hear you, James.
No, that was intentional.
Oh, okay.
I heard him yawn. Does that count?
All right.
He said, "Oh darn, I have to stop playing Arena on my phone."
Oh.
The One Ring.
Yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you read this card?
This card's messed
Pretty
up.
good.
It's pretty good. Unbelievable.
The Tabernacle at Pendle Vale.
This is so funny.
This cracked me up.
Yeah, this is so funny.
Also, just because of the length, the name of the card is it like almost runs off the side of the page because they formatted it so the colorless were all the way on the right.
It's just like there are only like I don't know. I mean, well, there are Italian copies, but there are like I don't know 5,000 copies of this card or whatever.
existence.
Like a very low amount, and like 2 of those people are in that work at this like
Yeah,
office.
you and Serge each
Yeah,
have a
and it's just
Tabernacle?
like. I don't know. Like, I guess you want to make this a game changer, but like, who the hell is playing this?
If you're
card?
unfamiliar, and because why wouldn't you be? It's a land. It doesn't even tap for mana. It just sits there and says all creatures have at the beginning of your upkeep sacrifice this creature unless you pay 1.
God, could you imagine that?
That's it.
I
That's
think-
all it does.
I think also along the lines of like Rhystic Study and Trouble with Pairs and stuff, this gives those creatures that ability.
Yeah.
Not this land having the ability. So then it's a bunch of like, hey, you got to pay your Tabernacle, or like they have to announce all the triggers or whatever.
they
Like,
they have to keep track of what their creatures.
yeah,
now do.
yeah. It's all the onus is on them because it's they control that triggered ability. Yeah.
I love James has pulled up the original wording. All creatures now require an upkeep cost of 1 in addition to any other upkeep costs they may have. If the upkeep cost for a creature is not paid, the creature is destroyed. It's so passive voice. It's like if the upkeep cost is not paid, the creature is destroyed.
Sorry, I mean that's just the rules of Magic the Gathering.
I'm just a legendary land.
I just played the land. You're the one who has to keep track.
You're
of
the
it.
smart one.
Well, so long.
Trinisphere is also there.
Yay!
This is also just like, I mean, I get it, but like, I don't know. 3-ball, it's like, oh, dang. My bracket 2 deck was really hoping to 3-ball.
Man, when we did CDH night on Friday Night Paper Fight and Surge had the Trinisphere deck, like, that was a fun stream.
It was
that
great.
deck sucked.
Trinisphere
to play
Griffins?
against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because he played that, and then the second game that we played, he played the other sort of one. The
Oh.
Damping Matrix?
damping.
Oh,
Yeah.
he played Damping Sphere or
Damping
Dampening
Sphere.
Sphere?
Yeah.
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 He
Anyway.
may have also played the Matrix.
I'm pretty sure he played Trinisphere on turn 2 in one of those games.
This is so fun because Angel has a Triad of Fates deck that is based around the number 3, which is like the deck that you mentioned that would be like tier 1 or whatever,
yeah.
bracket 1. And I'm pretty sure she's playing Trinisphere. So it's like, nope, sorry, bracket 4.
Bracket 3 here. Off you go.
Here you go.
Bracket 3. Perfect.
Oh my God, it is perfect.
Yeah.
Grim Monolith.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Building taps for 3 mana. Lion's Eye Diamond. So it's like, it's just like Black Lotus. Mox Diamond. And Mana Vault.
Understandable.
And finally,
I'm noticing a trend.
Glacial Chasm.
This is so
Yeah.
funny too.
Yeah.
Like, I get it because it just says nobody gets to play. But
Cumulative upkeep, pay 2 life. When it comes into play, sack a land. Creatures you control can't attack and prevent all damage that be dealt to you.
so the Game Changer list is not exhaustive of every card that could fall under this category, right? Like
right.
it's a beta list. This is there are cards that are not on this list that probably could be, like Necropotence or Mishra's Workshop. There are cards that could land on there. There are cards on here that may be taken off the list because it's like, well, people weren't playing this, but now that we're talking about it, people might play this sort of thing. Like it's Trinisphere, dude. Like you don't need it as a game changer sort of thing. Like you could make an argument towards that. And I like it. I like that it is not a watch list. I like that it is not a ban list, but it is a, hey, dude, these cards are messed up. And like sometimes that's all people need.
They just
is
need to
be
people might not know the effect of something like, I've played this card and I haven't played against it,
yeah.
so I don't know how fighting against it feels. Right.
But I mean, I'm in favor of this. Like as just a little guy, I'm looking forward to only playing 2s, 1s and 2s from here on out. Like I don't want to see any of those cards, frankly. So it's like, great, cool.
Yeah, and on the flip, like I'm the same. I'm happy to go up to 3 because I like the idea of knowing that if I am in 3 and I'm seeing somebody, like and they're running like Smothering Tithe or something like that, there's only going to be 2 other cards.
Yeah, you're not going to
in
see
that realm.
You're not going to see Rift and Force of Will and Fierce Guardianship and Rhystic Study and
Exactly, right? Like it's like there's a very high chance that prior to this, people who were running those cards in every deck were running at least 10 of the cards that were on that thing, right? And so bringing that down to like I think it makes a much more interesting deck building kind of experience too, right? Where I think one of the complaints that a lot of people have had about Commander, over the past like decade or so, is there are so many just auto includes in the format in the form of these game changers and stuff. And so I think curbing that, instead of being like, so I have my Commander, so I have 99, but then I got to play Soul Ring and Arcane Signet, so now I'm down to 97 choices or whatever. But then I am in white, so I need to run Smothering Tithe, Path of Exile, blah, 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 blah. And it's like really you're only making like 30 actual choices or whatever like that. For the people who do build in that way, this might offer a different avenue. Which
Modern Legends especially are very prescriptive in what they do and what you play around them, and you'll pair that with what Ben says of like, I'm a white deck, I'm going to include all these white cards even after I've already loaded up on the essentials or whatever, the 3 cards they put in that Foundations beginner product. And it can get to be a little samey at times for both your experience as somebody playing that deck and the experience of other people, because it's like, oh, this is the third pod in a row that I've ran into with somebody playing a Captain Howler deck or whatever. And shaking that up is one of the best things you can do to help your enjoyment with Commander. And that is tough for a lot of people because building decks and brewing decks is tough, and figuring out what to switch, where to, or even just like acquiring the cards can be difficult for some people. But one of the easiest ways to onboard people to like a lifestyle of customization and maybe not playing the most optimized pile is through having a limited amount of game changers. Like, and for what it's worth, as somebody that has been involved with a format that has a points list where you only get so many of them, that is like,
I like our points list.
Points
that is the
it's
name
literally
of it.
what it's called. But for like, you know, this
yeah.
game changer is in a way a points list. One of
They
the
did call out Canlander specifically in the article.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things about the points list that can apply to the game changer as well is, this sounds really harsh, but like the like biggest thing that the points list or the game changer list can do is convince people that their decisions matter, even when they don't. And that's great because it doesn't matter. Like, realistically, how big of an impact is it if you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to play Worldly Tutor instead of Enlightened Tutor. It's just like, okay. Like, it's not, you know, out of 100 games, how many times are you really going to run into that decision mattering? But when it does, you feel like a genius, right? You're like, oh my God, if that had been Enlightened Tutor, I would have been dead. Or you run into, you're like, actually, I want to change that back to Enlightened Tutor. Then you feel smarter about the decision you made, and you feel more connected to your deck because you are actively changing like around the most important cards in your strategy. So when it does matter, it feels good. And when it doesn't matter, it still feels good because you're getting to fidget with things, right? Like, this can also kind of lead into how a lot of players, especially the more online or more invested players, engage with Magic, is that they demand fidget spinners, right? They demand Commander ban list discourse. They demand talking about mass land destruction or whatever, right? This just, it permeates throughout the entire range of people who are annoying online to people who are annoying in store, of like talking about the format and talking about the game. And so the game changer list also does that, in that it creates conversation. It creates discussion about like, well, what game changers are you playing? Which game changers should I be playing? Which new cards should be game changers? Which ones shouldn't be? And thinking about why they are making those decisions, or why other people have and they haven't. And that's a very cynical take on this, is that is a great distraction for people that we want to distract while we work on actual stuff. Because, again, I hinted this at the beginning of this episode, all of this is very nebulous. All of this can mean nothing to a bulk of the player base. But to the folks that are more invested in it, the ones that are going to take all this and move forward with this information in a positive light, are hopefully going to act as like ambassadors to their play groups, or even like act as like representatives at Magic Cons for like, yeah, let's play with twos, you know, and you get other people to kind of follow with that energy.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to have the ability as well, like from a new player perspective, like if you're just getting into the game and whatnot, the ability to have like a list, essentially, like a deck building sort of guide of being like, okay, well, you know, I would like to try and be in this realm. So what kind of cards do I get to put in there? And just having sort of like a guideline, because then it also gives them another way to become more enfranchised, where they're just like, I would like to move up to this next bracket and whatnot.
Right.
What cards should I be looking at? And what, you know, how do I improve my deck in that way? And it gives them that aspect. Well, also simultaneously, I think it also, I could see this also having a slight reaction to that last big banning kind of a thing, where it kind of gives, I guess, like a little bit more faith in the market, in a sense where they're just like, we're putting this card in the game changer thing. It's not going to be banned. Don't worry, and you can still play with it and stuff. So it's like you can the players who did get all pissy and stuff about these cards that were getting banned that are now worth nothing and stuff like that. Now it's like you can still play with it. And if you're trying to play with your in like these like lower kind of tier things, then you're sitting in 3 and you have to make some conscious decisions. And if you're wanting to play with it in every single deck, here's this 4 to 5 group that you get to continue to play with it. It's not gone. It's just on this list to identify the fact that this is like either a problematic card or a card that promotes a certain style of gameplay.
Yeah,
right?
You can argue that the Commander ban lists, or even just approaching the idea of banning cards in Commander, is a fruitless endeavor because, like, you ban one Time Walk, you going to ban the others. You ban one Wheel or one Draw 7, you're going to ban the others. Like, you ban Mana Crypt. How come you're not banning Mana Vault or Soul Ring or Ancient Tomb or whatever? But like, the Game Breakers is a way to do exactly that, of being like, well, if you're playing at this level and here are the parameters, then you only get so many of them. And so, yeah, the points put up on your deck, you got to figure out what to do now. I do want to be clear. Cards on the Game Changer list could be banned.
They could be.
They could be banned.
Yeah.
It's not a, like, don't worry, here's Sanctuary for all these cards.
Right.
But it is not, if it is on the Game Changer list, it is for sure going to be banned. Or if it's not on the Game Changer list, there's no chance it will get banned.
Yeah,
but I could see
banning is separate from the list.
Yeah, like I could see a card that's like on the Game Changer list, and then it turns out that like literally every single tier 3 deck or bracket 3 is running that card. Then it's like, okay, let's identify why this is the case.
Yeah.
Right? Or, I could go in that realm. I mean, they're going to have to play this fun balancing game where, because it's kind of there's so many cards, you got such a massive card pool and stuff, you run the risk of the list just getting like way too long, or a little bit too complicated and stuff, which I imagine is something that you've had to balance in Canlander quite a bit.
Yeah, complexity creep is already a pretty big issue that, I mean, for all the faults that I will talk about, the prescriptive deck building does help with complexity creep for like what it takes to actually get a Commander deck built in front of you with people that have similar intentions or the same bracket. Banned as Commander gets brought up a bunch. I think that's mostly disingenuous crap. When people are like, it's too, like, if this is the thing that's okay, how is this not okay? And it's because
I've got opinions about Companion.
Oh, Companion? Yeah, that's an off-mic conversation to have.
But no, like, I will say it's kind of interesting because it's like, obviously with Canlander and the points, because this is, it's very clearly they've got similarities, these two. Yeah. But it's like with Canlander, you're looking at a more enfranchised player base and stuff. Like if you're playing Canlander, there's a good chance that you
more or less have to be,
and Magic at least to an extent, right? And it's like Commander is tough, right? Because Commander for a lot of people is like almost this onboarding into Magic thing. Like
it's how whether or not it's a healthy thing.
Yeah, it is a good it's a onboarding thing that people use, and then
should it be standard? Should it be draft? Yeah,
probably,
but
But once you start adding this prohibitive card list that these new people have, you might have to direct them to or whatever. I can see that being a difficult thing. But like again, that's also it's worth pointing out that this isn't this like set in stone thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're playing with your friends and you're running 4 Game Changers in what you have described as, or what you think is a tier 3 deck or whatever, I don't think anyone's going to scream at you.
Yeah,
right. Like it's not the law.
There's a big difference in terms of the complexity, especially for onboarding new players, when it comes to having 2 separate ban lists. And one ban list is just like, well, but I saw that in a game. It's like, no, that was in their deck, not their commander. And having these cards where it's like, they're not banned, but you only get so many of them. Especially when, like, I mean, we all got phones. Graham and James are on their phones right now. If Nelson was here, he'd be playing Arena during the podcast. Like,
Nobody is safe.
no.
on this record.
Surge is probably opening the wrong cards in Pokemon Pocket as we speak. But like everybody's got like it sounds like a bit of a hand wavy kind of thing, but like we all got phones. We can Magic players, you need to be at least somewhat, you don't need to be smart, but you need to be not a complete idiot to play. Well, actually,
And here, on the chance you think that Ben and I have been too slanderous, we'll give you one. Ben was late for this recording, and I spilled Graham's coffee just before
the
we
transit
went on.
system here is so bad. I have like
So there, everyone got shot today.
it is so bad. I have renewed my license in one of the most walkable cities in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's brackets. And I mean, it's funny because like the thing is, it's beta. It's still very beta. This could all still be changed and tweaked and everything. I think it's a great start.
Yeah, it's Sigma.
But like also like you and your playgroup, you don't have to use these.
No, Graham is right. If your playgroup is full of Sigma, Skibbity, Riz, Ohio players such as myself, then like you don't have to. You can ignore that.
Yeah,
you can ignore the beta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you were making a point. You were closing the episode. What was going on, dude?
I think.
Did you win your draft match or?
What? I was talking to James.
Hey, these guys.
Please get these idiots off mic. Cut their mics.
Wait, if I'm holding it sideways, then I'm on arena.
It is.
If I'm like,
landscape viewport.
You got to learn how to like play arena like
arena
this.
I was going to say
Yeah.
that doesn't hit because Kathleen plays Snap.
oh god, so much
Hey,
snap.
if I could teach myself what split cards do while they're like this in my hand, you can learn how to play arena.
All right, fair enough.
Portrait.
I'll start practicing. I had it mess up once where like I was playing arena and I got like a notification or something. I turned my phone and arena like actually like reoriented to vertical, which it's not designed to do and it's not supposed to do. This was clearly a glitch. It looked horrendous, but it like worked, like it functioned, but it was not like playable.
Yeah.
You turn, you're trying to get it back, you hear. You're like,
Trying to invoke the gyroscopes.
invoke the gyroscope.
Yeah. Cool. What do you think about brackets? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Hey, Tap Conceit is brought to you by our friends at Card Kingdom. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. And also it is brought to you by you and your support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun or by becoming a member on this YouTube channel. And shout outs to members at the end of the episode. Check us out at MagicCon Chicago. Wait, hang on. When's this episode?
Yeah.
Check us out this weekend at MagicCon Chicago if you're going to be there. And also this Friday, premiering on this channel, Friday nights.
So excited!
Very excited about that. Until then, I have been Graham, joined by Ben. And Wheeler. James has been on tech. Heather Casey's online. Thank you all so much for watching. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.